afternoon. It's audible, no? We'll start today. Today's topic is Northeast extremism and Northeast. So we saw two aspects. One is the Jammu Kashmir and other is the Naxalism. And the third serious internal security threat to India is Northeast and related issues. As far as Northeast is concerned, it has a completely different connotation. You got the materials, you got the model answer? Okay, you read it? You just see for 5 minutes. Any doubts you can ask. Last page. They have attached it to the last page, it seems. The answer for the question. So left-wing extremism is showing a downward trend, but still affects many parts of the country. Briefly explain the Government of India's approach to counter challenges by left-wing extremism. So the first part, introduction, since it is going to be a model answer, I was not very specific about word limit because I'm about giving you more facts and more substances on it. I'm just showing you the design of the answer. The first part is about a positive introduction to it, and then developmental solutions, and then security solutions. And as far as developmental solutions are concerned, I have given you 4 or 5 schemes. It would be last page. We've taken to the last page. Then on the second page, I have given you the security solution, which is predominantly from Samadhan. So you will just see it and compare it with your answer whenever you write the answer. Now we'll go into Northeast issues. As far as Northeast issues are concerned, it is basically, we term it as an crisis out of ethno-nationalism. So it is not about an separatist attitude. As I already said, before starting internal security, I was saying internal security is more about looking the governance historically and the parts where we have left out. Most of the internal security issues what we have today is out of lack of attention on the part of the government, or by means of maladministration, or by means of non-coverage of the area, or not understanding their ethnocentrism. So all the problems arises out of one common thread, that is alienation of the masses. Alienation of the masses from the mainstream. But the difficulty now is, we have seen 2 already. One is Naxalism, where they have been forcefully alienated. Second is Jammu Kashmir issue, where they have not been integrated. The third now what we are going to see is Northeast issues. Northeastern states, as far as we know, it is previously called as 7 sisters and now it is plus Sikkim. So it is 8 states. As far as Northeast is concerned, Northeast insurgencies or Northeast issues are predominantly around a concept called as ethno-nationalism. Ethno-nationalism is about, they have their own nationalistic ideologies, they have their own values and they have their own culture, and strictly speaking, the Northeast issues are predominantly because of this ethno-nationalism. This arises out of a basic question from Northeast. They understand, or there is a famous quotation in Nagaland where they say we are Nagas by birth and Indians by accident. So their major accusation against India is, we are nowhere part of India and we have been annexed by you forcefully. If you take, this happens everywhere, even in case of Arunachal Pradesh, or in case of Manipur, or in case of Nagaland, everywhere, they're basically in Tripura, everywhere the basic allegation is, none of the rulers were readily available for signing the instrument of accession. If you take the case of Manipur, instrument of accession would not be signed by the king by himself. He would have been forced to do that. Similarly in Tripura, the king would have been died, then his successors would be forced to have been do the instrumentation of accession. And for Nagas, there is no agreement between Indians and Nagas. It is an agreement between British and Burma. That is the consequence how Nagaland has been annexed within us. Similarly, in case of Assam, Yandoban treaties, it is between after first Burmese war in 1800s, in which British and Burma signs agreement based on with the Assam becomes a part of India. And everywhere the difficulty arises here because they say they are not culturally related, nor racially related, nor geographically related. We are geographically distinct. We are racially distinct. We are linguistically distinct. My food habits are completely different from your food habits. So from every aspect, there is no similarity between us and Northeast. That was the statements they make. That was the allegations they make. Most of the issues in northeastern states are seen as an element of subnationalism or element of separatism. That is where our government makes mistake. That is what we realize of late. The difficulty now is we term something as mainstream, and these not necessarily be termed as mainstream. And mainstream for us need not necessarily be the mainstream for northeastern people. The general tribal policy of any civilized country is that they will only allow them independence and if it is for them to integrate with the mainstream. And whereas in northeast, we wrongly understand their situation as if they are out of non-stream, out of mainstream, and they needs to be brought into mainstream. And whenever they speak about their identity or whenever they speak about their own separate existence, we say that is subnationalism or separatism. That is the core of the issue. Here, there need to be change of mindset. That change of mindset needs to be brought by means of various other mechanisms, not by means of blaming them as extremists or blaming them as insurgents. The real difficulty lies is originally, geographically, if we see northeast was originally, when we look at the old map of India prior to partition of Pakistan, the whole of Bangladesh will be there, and it would be the whole of Bengal would be there. It would be easy for us to connect with northeast. Now what happens after Pakistan's partition, there is only a very small space that we call it as Siliguri corridor or chicken neck. So that is the only connect point for us to reach northeast. So that naturally what happens, they become alienated administratively. And naturally the attentions on them were not very much by the government of India. These have resulted subsequently, after forcefully integrating them, we should have taken an better administrative or governance setup should have been brought there. That we have also missed to do. And there was, unless and until the government of India understood it to be a terrible issue or a very serious issue, we were not putting much attention on them except for starting a Northeastern Council in 1971. And otherwise, whenever there is a separatist tendency there, we treat it as an extremism. Whenever there is going to be any armed struggle against us, we treat it as an issue of questioning the sovereignty of the nation or breaking the integrity of the nation. All these have culminated into different aspects. We need to understand one aspect about Northeast, that it is an ethical minefield, where you have more than 400 subgroups and more than 140, not only rebel groups, but there are more than 160 scheduled tribes and more than 400 subgroups. And there are even groups where one village will speak one dialect and the other village will speak in another dialect. It would be hardly 4 kilometers, 3 kilometers, but these people would be of having different identities culturally, linguistically. So these are the difficulties which we never understood that this is need to be addressed. These are the places where the government of India originally failed. And when One more thing what we need to understand it is, they don't fight with the state governments and central government alone. There will always be an infighting between the groups. And these are all common happenings at Northeast. And we fail to understand several aspects. The government of India will immediately give an attention on, whenever there is an agitation, government of India will immediately give attention on it. Then it slowly, when it happens for 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, and people of Northeast and tribes of Northeast started to understand, if I am going to agitate, then the government is going to look at me. And immediately whenever there is an offer for ceasefire, government will go for ceasefire. And these ceasefires, we go without minding the size of the organization which is creating the armed struggle. Sometimes a minimum member of 20 people will start the fight and government will start giving them concessions. Seeing that the majority of the tribe will also start raising the issues. Even in the case of in 2015, we signed an accord with NSE and Isaac Muiwa. NSE and Isaac Muiwa, we signed an accord. There was a huge resistance to that from original Nagaland communities. They said Isaac Muiwa, NSE and IM is not our representative. They are only one group which are representing us. And we are not fully represented by them. And we are represented by more number of groups. Then government of India comes down and then says, yes, you all come. Then they appoint Mr. Ravi as the interlocutor, and Mr. Ravi is negotiating now. And now 6 groups have been called for, and several other civil societies have been called for conducting negotiations. And all these things are the mistakes which we have done. When we will go by state, what we will do now, the class design would be like this. This is what the crux of Northeast is. Don't think I am always speaking against government in these kinds of issues. The fact remains the same. Whenever there is going to be a disagreement with the state, out of frustration, then it is naturally the state's duty to look into it. This is a basic condition, and it is state's duty not only to protect the integrity of the nation, but also it is duty to ensure the welfare of the people. When we speak about internal security, I have not given you about what is internal security. The Q, I told you I will, after finishing all this, we will be talking about internal security. The Q for internal security rises from a preamble, where the unity and integrity of the nation. Okay, unity and integrity of the nation is where the basic Q starts for maintenance of internal security. The same preamble also states about what should be ensured for the people. There are 2 aspects in a preamble. One is about the ideals of the constitution maker, other is the aspirations. These aspirations are not that of the constitutional makers, but that of the people. When these aspirations are not fulfilled, it is natural for people to have frustrations against the government. When it is going to be frustration against the government, it is natural that there can be any kind of reactions on the part of government, on the part of the people who feels they are alienated. That is the fact with regard to Naxalism. That is the fact with regard to Jammu Kashmir. That is the fact also with regard to Northeast. As far as Naxalism is concerned, Naxalism is by means of oppression and suppression of lower caste and tribals by the government machineries and by the zamindars and the rich and the affluent of those areas. That was the reason why Naxalism started. Whereas Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, we saw yesterday, it is predominantly because of the alienation and non-integration of Jammu and Kashmir properly into the mainstream India. And for Jammu and Kashmir, as I already said, they were never against the slow, okay. Slow like this. That is why, okay guys, I thought it is a doubt. Okay. So as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, they were ready to get integrated with India, but we have missed the chances of integration, and now we rectify both, not by means of force. Now force has become inevitable as a second option or an option alongside. But actually, if India would have been governed properly, definitely these problems would not have come. And naturally, as far as governance is concerned, another aspect what we need to understand is, in governance, it is like, as it comes, we will reform it. That is what we call as cutback management. Whenever there is going to be an issue, we will handle it and we will go it further. This is what yesterday I was speaking about administrative lag. There will always be an administrative lag, and because of this administrative lags, there would have been some difficulties. What we missed is the responsiveness to the administrative lag. And that is what is the post-globalization focus on governance. Post-1990s administrative reform speaks about transparency. Post-90 administrative reform speaks about right to information, right to employment, all these rights issues has been taken. And now we see originally the Northeast issue or the Naxals issue or the Jammu Kashmir issue has been seen from a different prism. And now it is being seen from a different prism. I was telling you when I was taking Naxalism, I was referring about President Jail Singh's statement on Naxalism. When Naxalism issue was raised before the president said it is an law and order issue where it has to be handled by the states themselves. Subsequently, now we realize Naxalism is not a law and order issue, more it is a social issue. Similarly, we slowly understand ethno-nationalism is not wrong. We speak about rights of transgenders, we speak about right of same-sex marriages, we speak about right of temple entry into women, gender equality. Now, and another evolving concept of rights issues, ethno-nationalism. These ethno-nationalism, if not being addressed properly, it is natural that it will only further alienate the people. So the problem, that is why Government of India has appointed a committee and the committee has also submitted its report. And those committees' report we would be seeing now, because I don't want to say the pronunciation, that would you not be understanding it. I would only show that. So that is why I'm not making my pronunciation on the committee's name. So these committees have recommended what to do, what not to do. All these things you'll be seeing. The structure of the class is going to be like this. We are now going to introduce you each state and what are the problems in each state, and then a final solution for it. Like Jammu and Kashmir or like Naxalism, it is not going to be in one single flow. Because in the Northeast, since we are going to handle some issues of 8 states, we will be, as subtopics, will be seeing Armed Forces Special Power Act, we would be seeing Northeastern Council's latest status, we would be seeing 5th schedule and 6th schedule, we would be looking at other aspects of it. So similarly, we would be looking into various committees' recommendation on it. So there are several sub-issues involved in Northeast. And Northeast is, as far as Northeast peace is concerned, largely now most of the insurgent activities are kept under ceasefire agreement. So we cannot take them as they are given up their weapons. Now what happens now is Government of India post 2000, as I said, we realized post 1990s, we realized certain things. We understood Jammu Kashmir has to be handled in a different fashion, Naxalism has to be handled in a different fashion. Similarly, we have also understood Northeast has to be handled in a different fashion. So in 2003, we gave Bodo Territorial Council, okay, you would have understood, and we have now started giving more of 6th schedule status to many places in those 4 states. All these things are various measures which government take. And we have now brought NSE and Nagaland into table for discussions, and we have gone for an formal agreement with them in 2015. And all these things have only now brought a temporary stop for violence, but it has not completely kept Northeast out of violence. And as far as violence or insurgents activities are concerned, it is not all over the Northeast. That is also, we have a wronger impression that the whole Northeast is full of insurgency. There are elements of insurgency. As we see each state, we would be seeing what is the cause of it and what is it. And predominantly it is out of ethno-nationalism, either for a sovereign state or for a separate statehood or for some autonomy within the state. It ultimately, the ultimate goal of all the demands would be about recognizing their ethno-nationalism.
So you said that all this Naxalism, extremism, whatever is happening in the Kashmir issue, all this is in the periphery of India. Everything is at the periphery, in the mainland India, that is what, the Bharat. It's not facing all these problems. So if we compare the center, like all these regions, they have their regional governments, and at the center we have the union government. So is it due to party politics or it is due to government?
Yeah, but it has nothing, I won't say nothing to do with other party politics. The fact remains, first thing, central government does not rule any state. Central government is going to be common for all states.
Sir, the same party, sir,
Illa,
the party which is ruling at the center, if it rules at the periphery.
Yeah, that got disturbed as early as 1967. Single party dominance gets ended with 1967. After that, okay, Tamil Nadu, there was a Dravidian politics. In Kerala, it was Communist Front. In West Bengal, it was Communist Front. In Orissa.
These problems arise now because
No, we cannot say predominantly we have to put the blame on it as a governance issue. We cannot say it is, we adopt a principle concept representative democracy. We select our own representatives, we select our rulers or we select our chief ministers or MLAs or whatever, we choose our government. Then we cannot say it is not because of the lack of coordination between center and state. Lack of coordination in central state is a different issue which we have to handle where states issues comes up in federalism where you will read. But these internal security issues, we have to blame as it is an overall governance issue and not it is because the state government is elected or state government is not unable to control it. Maybe sometimes state government would have been not in a position. Some 10 years back, there was a demand by state governments for sending army and military to control Naxal problems, for which central government refused to say. Whereas in Northeast, Armed Forces Special Power Act has been implemented in many of the states where it is a governor without the permission of the chief minister can implement. Article 355 of Indian Constitution empowers the central government to ensure that there is no internal disturbance or to protect the states from internal disturbance and external aggression. So it all depends upon case by case approach. But we cannot, these kinds of issues cannot be blamed because of one reason. This is the only reason which has come. There has to be multiplicity of reasons and as I said, it has to be seen as this, we are now seeing it as postmortem. This has happened. When we see why this has happened, this would not have happened if we would have reacted early like this. So this is how we have to see it. Okay. And prior to 1967, so those things I will discuss later. So this is Northeast. All of us will be knowing. And this is the only way we enter Northeast. Okay, that we call it as Siliguri corridor. So you must be knowing it. So this is the only way we go. That is why, now what previously prior to independence, we can, when there was full Bengal, we had a very easy access. But still, they were very remote. Now what we'll do is we'll just give a basic introduction about Northeast geographically and otherwise, and then we'll go directly into the issues of Northeast. You must be knowing, Northeast involves these 8 states and also some parts of North Bengal. And this is what we are talking about. All this you must be knowing. The Northeast, one of the speciality of Northeast is 97% of the boundary is international boundary, Northeast. So that is one difficulty where we are unable to originally control. Subsequently now we got control of it because of our, prior to Gujarat Doctrine, you must be knowing about Gujarat Doctrine where we were showing about, we are not showing our big brother attitude. And after Gujarat Doctrine, all these Myanmar, Bangladesh, Bhutan, either we are able to negotiate to an extent that our internal security needs to be protected by them. I will say how they are originally troubling us. The political integration. Political integration, originally it was Tripura, Manipur and Assam. It was only 3 provinces. What subsequently happens is, these 3 provinces become the northeastern states. Manipur and Tripura have been annexed with India into India by means of an instrument of accession, where originally the Manipuri king was not willing to join with India, but we forcefully made him join India. Whereas in Tripura also the same thing happened. Okay, and as far as Assam is concerned, it is because of the agreement between British government and the previous Burmese rulers and others. This is where Nagaland was the first state recognized in Northeast. This is where the problem starts. We are asking post 1967 the issue starts. No, the original problem starts from Nagaland. Nagaland originally was not part of India. That is what their claim is. They say our demand is Greater Nagaland. What they will be seeing about Nagaland exclusively, every state will be seeing, but I am giving a basic introduction. Once Nagaland started, Nagaland was demanding separate independence, not after 1947. They have been asking it from the British government after First World War. Post First World War, the Naga people who have been recruited in the British Army formed a club called as Naga Club. And these people have been negotiating with British that we have a separate identity as a culture and we need to be recognized and we need to be given separate statehood or dominion status, which was ignored by British and they forced them to be part of the Northeast. And subsequently, post 1950s, the trouble was very high and Nagaland was always having an armed struggle against the sovereign India. What happens is, Nehru government negotiates with them and gives a statehood. That is where the trouble starts. Once Nagaland is given statehood, everybody started to take arms. And they started to take arms and stating, if Nagaland could be given that, we also require it. So they started the same strategies of using armed struggle against the sovereign India. This is how it started in Northeast. So we will be seeing it separately. Then Manipur, Tripura and Meghalaya were given separate statehood. Mizoram and Arunachal Pradesh, these things you will be studying in polity. Hope. Okay. And Sikkim. Sikkim, you would be knowing how Sikkim was annexed, brought into India. Okay, brought into India by as a protractor state initially, and Sikkim Legislative Assembly voted in favor of India, and then automatically Indian government gave the status of protractor state and subsequently as an full-fledged state. So Arunachal Pradesh again we will be seeing. Arunachal Pradesh is in disputed territory between now India and China. And why it is disputed territory, that also we will be seeing. So these are the areas which we have to see now. So as far as climate is concerned, northeastern state, it is having a subtropical climate and wet and humid summers, and it is generally very pleasant. And as far as forest, you must be knowing. So all these things, just because it is an introduction, in this slide I need to share with you, so it has to be comprehensive. I have given it. I don't think I should explain this. When should I explain? No. So these are languages spoken and resources of Northeast. We'll now go into this. This is what I was discussing about. Largely the political unrest in Northeast is out of the ethno-nationalism. Either they ask for a greater autonomy or a separate statehood or a complete independence from India. These are the three demands. Each state differs. Each state, some state says Assam is for Assamese, whereas Nagaland says we want a separate statehood, whereas Bodoland says we want a separate territorial council. So every state have their own demands, but everything pertains only to their own ethno-nationalism. And most of the insurgents are armed. That is because, I told you, it is because of the initial trend set by Nagaland. Nagaland, originally, those British army people, ex-servicemen, were given armed, they were armed by the British, and that became the trigger point for them to go against India. From there it started, and subsequently this became the trend, and subsequently Chinese intervention or the help from Myanmar, all these things further escalated the tension there, and they started demanding with arms. That is how it started. So now we'll go into Assam first. So as far as Assam is concerned, Northeast is not going to be very difficult as Naxalism or others. We will be seeing state by state, and we will be looking into one after the other aspects of it. So as far as Northeast is concerned, the separatist in Northeast is Ulfa. Originally Ulfa originated in 1979. Ulfa's basic demand is United Liberation Front of Assam. Original demand of Ulfa is very simple, that Assam is for Assamese. So they said Assam is for Assamese because of the difficulties they have faced. They started in 1979, All Student Association of Assam started an agitation against the government, state government, stating that lot of illegal migrants from Bangladesh. In 1971, there would be Bangladesh war, then post Bangladesh war, Bangladesh should have been liberated, and because of that, most of the peoples would get migrated into India and predominantly into Assam. This was the trigger point was Assam's issue. From there, Ulfa started demanding that Assam should be for Assamese. And subsequently what happens, and as far as every insurgent group in Northeast is concerned, they would be taking arms and fighting, and they would be demanding, and once the demand is being negotiated, they will come down. This is the general strategy they were having. And subsequently, Government of India negotiates with them. When they negotiate, they come for negotiation 2001, and suspension of operations happens in 2001. What now happens is, Ulfa's claim, this is what we need to understand, this is the basic story. Ulfa's claim is that we are never part of the Treaty of Andoban. Treaty of Andoban is between British, and it is out of First Burmese War. And they say we are never part of it, and we never have been consulted, and now we cannot be integrated into India. And original demand of them is to carve out Assam out of India and establish a socialistic state. Establish a socialist state for which India is not ready. Then subsequently what happens, Ulfa becomes one of the most dreadful terrorist organization there, and they started negotiating with India. And they gives three demands for negotiating with India. One is that it should be UN brokered. And other is, it should happen, negotiation should happen in the third country. And third is the sovereignty issue they will not drop. Okay, all these are there in the slide, and just I will tell you the story, and once the slide is shared with you tomorrow, you will automatically read it. So what the demand of Assam is that, Ulfa is that, we will not give up the sovereignty issue. UN has to broker the negotiation, and third is, it has to happen in the third world. Third world is the third country, for which India says, first two they are ready to give up, and the third one, that is the sovereignty issue, India said, we can negotiate only within the constitutional terms. And what happens is, in the meantime, Ulfa gets separated. One is Aravind Rajagawa, another Paresh Barua. There are two people who are leading the team. As far as Aravind team is concerned, they have come for a negotiation on the table, and once their negotiation happens, and he is now arrested. Now he is under Government of India's custody. And as far as Paresh Barua is concerned, he is against negotiation, and he is still having the arms. But what happens now is, the recently last 4 months before or 5 months before, there is a news that he has been killed in an accident, for which there is no authenticated news from them that he is alive. But the Arvind's group says he is still alive. The Arvind's group is called as the group which is for talking. I will show you this online. So Ulfa PTA. PTA is pro-talk faction. And as Ulfa, ATF is anti-talk faction. Anti-talk faction, Paresh Barua, there is a rumor that he is no more alive. Whereas Aravind Rajagawa is under arrest. The general understanding about Assam issue is concerned, they have now given up lot of their demands. Now the general understanding, though they have not officially given up, the general behavior of Ulfa pro-talk faction is that they are ready for a negotiation on the table, provided their major issues are understood. That is economic underdevelopment in Assam, illegal migrants from Bangladesh, equitable sharing of revenue from Assam's important resources, and massive unemployment. These they want to be addressed as far as Assam is concerned. But these are all not going to be the question area. Recently, what is the issue current affairs? This is the history I just want to show. Indira Goswami was the interlocutor for Assam. As far as Indira Goswami is concerned, she acted on behalf of civil society. She made all those ultras to sit on the table, and finally the topics which were taken up for negotiation was this. From 2001 there is a ceasefire. In ceasefire, since ceasefire, there is not much of violence in Assam. But though we say not much of violence, there will be random incidents of violence. This is the story of Assam. But as far as current affairs is concerned, Assam is now important from Assam citizenship perspective. Now there is an register called as National NRC. So what is your opinion on that? NRC is what we need to understand now. What is your opinion on NRC? Should NRC be revived or should NRC be revisited now? What is NRC? National Citizenship Register. So NRC is, originally it was done in 1951, all over India. In NRC what we did is, we have registered citizens of India post independence. I'm telling, coming, okay, after independence. What happens now is, after NRC, NCR, NRC, there is no revisiting of it. Now recently Supreme Court has intervened and Supreme Court wanted to revise it, only to understand how many illegal migrants are there in Assam. Now there rises the trouble. That is one trouble of Assam. The second trouble of Assam is that the Citizenship Amendment Bill now being introduced. Now all of the factions in Assam have said, if you are going to pass the bill, then we are going to raise the arms again. We are going to walk out of ceasefire. These are the two issues which we need to see in the backdrop of this story. So as far as this population register or citizenship register is concerned, what are the practical difficulties? Whether we need to do it or not. Again I will tell you, if they would have done it every census, there would not have been a problem. Now the central government has not done it. The difficulty what happens in Assam is, every 10 years whenever the census comes, for vote bank politics reason, the local parties and local chief minister, the local politicians, for vote bank politics reasons, will somehow ensure that the new illegal migrants get citizenship. So that is the problem which Assam faced till 2000. So then it has become a national issue and it has started to come up as a national issue that illegal migrants have been, there have been instances where state governments have insisted upon central government to enact laws to ensure that all these illegal migrants become citizens of Assam, so that any chief minister who is going to give citizenship to those illegal migrants, naturally the vote is going to be for them. Okay, that was the strategy. Then Supreme Court interferes. So why Supreme Court would interfere and say revisit NRC? Revisit NRC, it is because of the reason that otherwise politicians use this as an vote bank politics where they attempt to give illegal migrants citizenship. So now what happens is, this revisiting of this creates a newer problem. It is two yardsticks in it. One is whoever is there in the register of 1951, okay, or their legacy. Second is till 1971. Okay, on the midnight of 1971, so and so date when Bangladesh got liberated. So what happens now is, majority of the 1/3 of women in Assam and 1/4 of men in Assam are illiterate. This is the status of literacy in Assam, and none of them are having documents. Second thing, when the women get married and when they get post-marriage, the family linkages get dropped. Assume a woman whose father have been registered in 1961 or 1951 registry is there, and she gets married and goes to another family where they could not have a record. The woman also loses. The woman's children also loses. If the father does not make his proper registration prior to 1971, then what happens now is, now the children will suffer. The women will suffer. And then few people would have gone there, worked there, and they would have come out. All these things have not been addressed at all. That is now the greatest grievance. Now the greatest grievance is illiterates who could not have maintained documents now would have gone out. Then the woman who has got married and shifted to another house would have been left. And the children of the parents who have not enrolled themselves despite being 1971. So all these issues have not been addressed. So this is the present status. Now they have uploaded it in the online, and there is nearly 4 million people who have been considered to be illegal migrants. So this is an issue with regard to population register, that is citizenship register. So we have to see how further it is, since it is Supreme Court has taken cognizance, Supreme Court has not further directed what to do with these so-called illegal immigrants. So that particular aspect have been kept open. The second aspect is that citizenship bill. If the citizenship bill is passed, there are chances that Bangladeshis and others may get citizenship. As I said, that is also one boiling issue. So these two issues central government has to address. How this is not going to affect Assam population. The counter argument for this is different completely. The counter argument for this is, in India, citizenship is a full citizenship. Okay, you cannot say an Indian cannot be a resident of Assam and he cannot be a citizen of India. Or not he can be a citizen of India, no, and not a citizen of Assam. So this is another counter argument being raised. The two conceptual aspects which we have to see, one is the cultural privilege and cultural rights. The counter arguments raised by those who have been dubbed as illegal migrants or those who have been declared as non-citizens is that cultural rights is a basic fundamental right to be protected. And citizenship cannot be based on a cultural privilege. Just because I am an Assami, I cannot be conferred citizenship. And just because I am not an Assami, I would be denied citizenship. Both these things are the arguments now going against each other. The demand of Assam is different, the demand of others is different. So how this is going to be handled by Supreme Court or the central government or the state government is another issue we have to understand it. Okay, if a government stand on ULFA, the government of India has banned ULFA under Unlawful Prevention Act. And ULFA has, because ULFA have done so many things. And government of India stand is that from 2011, there is an suspension of operations where they are not initiating any counter-offensive measures against ULFA unless and until they break the ceasefire. And India is ready for settling the disputes with ULFA provided they come for a discussion within the constitutional means. So this is another exam point of understanding. What can be the question of Northeast? There can be only two aspects of question in Northeast. One, they can go into a specific state and ask what is the issue going on and what is the solution for it. That is one part of question. Or else they can ask for an overall question on Northeast. Why, what is the problem persisting in Northeast? How Northeast can be integrated in India? Otherwise, these kinds of fringe issues like current affairs, Armed Forces Special Power Act, repeal, whether we need to repeal or not, whether citizenship in Assam, the citizenship amendment bill can be a current affairs question, or this citizenship register can be in question. So these 5th schedule, 6th schedule can be a question. So this is an area of question mine. There is every chance that they may take questions from here. So next issue with Assam is National Democratic Front of Bodoland. They are the next source of trouble. As well as National Democratic Front of Bodoland is concerned, they belong to Bodoland territory where they claim that they want to develop an Bodoland territory. Originally, Bodoland issue was taken up by Bodo Liberation Tigers. Original Bodoland issue was taken up BLF. They are called as Bodo Liberation Tigers, and that issue was settled by Government of India. That is where Bodo Territorial Council, you have read in polity, Bodo Territorial Council and the 6th schedule you would have read. That was created in 2003. That was a tripartite agreement between Government of Assam, Government of India and Bodo Liberation Tiger. And these people, once that is created, these people are very much happy and they have settled down with what they have got. But subsequently this Bodo Democratic Front of Bodoland has taken arms claiming that they are going to create a sovereign territory of Bodoland, and they have in 2013 they have killed some 51 people at one instance, and now they are also in ceasefire. And this is how Northeast story will go. Why they do it? Now in ceasefire. And as far as now, predominantly everybody is in ceasefire, except for one or two organizations where they don't want to come for negotiation table, such as NSC and Kaplong in Nagaland. They don't want to come for negotiation. So they will be always fighting with the Central government. Other than that, everybody in Nagaland is for a ceasefire. After Kaplang's death, that is also gone. No, that when I come to Nagaland, I will say. So, as far as Assam is concerned, this is how you will understand. It is not a very interesting story in every state, like Jammu Kashmir or in Naxalism. It is every state have their own problem, and every problem they have taken arms, and for every arms we have gone for negotiation, and every negotiation has led into ceasefire. There is no permanent solution as of now. Now, academic part is that how we are going to find a permanent solutions. Prior to go there, we need to finish all these historical stories. So that is the aspect. Now here, after when we read Bodo Territorial Council, we need to understand what is the difference between 5th and 6th schedule. So 5th schedule and 6th schedule are two aspects. You must be understanding. What is the difference between 5th and 6th schedule? That is what we need to read here. What is the difference? 5th and 6th schedule. 6th schedule is more generous or 5th schedule is more generous? 6th. Why is that? Governor has got the authority at 5th schedule. So 5th schedule, 6th schedule applies only to 4 states. 6th schedule has larger legislative powers and larger judicial powers and larger administrative powers. They will form a council. Once the council is formed, there will be a list of functions which they can do. And they would be even given judicial functions to perform. The acts of parliament will not get applied automatically. There has to be a specific pronouncement that these acts apply there. And it has to be modified suiting that particular schedule areas. Whereas 5th schedule is concerned, whatever actions they are taken, a report has to be sent by the governor to the president. And the central government will have a direct administrative control over there. Whereas 6th schedule is concerned, central government will not interfere. It is subject to the executive authority of the state government, but provided they have their own legislative functions, executive functions and judicial functions. Those tribal disputes, they will settle by means of tribal laws. Those local use of resources, they will decide how it has to be used. Those local generation of taxes, in Panchayat Raj also we have the scheme. But in Panchayat Raj, it is the discretion of the state government to give. In Panchayat Raj, the state government by means of law has to say what are all the powers we are delegating to you. That state government has to do by means of law. Whereas once it has been announced as 6th schedule council, then what are all in the list of 6th schedule will automatically go to the tribal council. So this tribal council is more independent of state. Whereas 5th schedule does not enjoy this status. 6th schedule, the 5th schedule is only protection, guaranteed that every report will go to the governor. Governor will send a report to the president. So the central government will have a direct watch on it. Whenever required, central government can directly interfere. This is the basic difference between 5th and 6th schedule, and material I will circulate and tomorrow you will receive it on 5th and 6th schedule. So this is NDBF and now it is Arunachal Pradesh. Next. As far as Arunachal Pradesh is concerned, it is very simple. This is the dispute. Arunachal Pradesh, we don't have much of dispute. As far as Arunachal Pradesh is concerned, the dispute is not between Indian government and Arunachal Pradesh, but it is within China and Arunachal Pradesh. It arises out of Shimla Accord. Okay, but still there was an instances of namesake insurgent groups, but they are very, very insignificant. Okay, we don't need to have them in mind. The real problem of Arunachal Pradesh is 1914 Shimla Accord. Shimla Accord is a tripartite, originally started as a tripartite agreement between British, India, Tibet and China. They distinguish into two, outer Tibet and inner Tibet. As far as outer Tibet is concerned, it would remain with the Tibetan, those religious leaders, but within the suzerainty of China. As far as inner Tibet is concerned, it will be with the China. This is what original proposal, where China suddenly walks out of the agreement. Subsequently what they do is, after that particular agreement, once China walks out, Tibet and British signs it. Can you understand what I say? Originally started as a tripartite agreement, but once China walks out, they sign it as a bipartite agreement. That is where that inner Tibet line becomes McMahon line. So that McMahon line is a dispute. Subsequently what happens, British does not pronounce it as the boundary or pronounce it as a McMahon line because originally British was also not agreeing with it because of British-Russia issue that I don't want to go inside. I just remember it. After 20 years, British announces it in 1938 and we take this line as the boundary line. Then subsequently British announces it and subsequently 1947 we get independence and Arunachal Pradesh is within McMahon line, for which now China is not agreeing. That is the dispute China has. So China, as far as China is concerned, China approaches Arunachal Pradesh on moral grounds and humanitarian grounds. Anyway, it is going to be very remote for you. You are not going to govern it. But see, till the border, you would have laid a beautiful road. All infrastructure would be there on the other side. If you go to Arunachal Pradesh, you can understand. From this side, if we see that side, it will be fully developed. Here, it would be mud road. Okay, that is an humanitarian ground they take. See, I am capable of doing it. You are ignoring it. Why would not I give it to you? Give it to me. And the other thing is, there is a presumption that there is a lot of gold mine in it. There is a presumption. Okay, because in the Chinese territory, they understand lot of gold mine is there. So these are the issues. And China blow hot and cold. Sometimes they include this in the map of India. Sometimes they don't include it in the map of India. And these are the two territories of and other boundary disputes you would be knowing. Okay, your madam would be taking you. This since it pertains to internal security issue, I am just showing. So this is the area where they claim okay, as disputed territory. Sometimes they integrate within the map of India. Sometimes they put it as a disputed territory. That is, in Indo-China relations, you would be understanding it. So Arunachal Pradesh is controlled by India, claimed by China. Whereas Akshai chain is controlled by China, claimed by India. So that is the issue in Arunachal Pradesh. And as well as armed insurgency is concerned, this is what I was telling you. Armed insurgency is concerned, Arunachal Dragon Force was the only isolated incident of insurgent group and they are also completely insignificant now. So I just need to show one insurgent group, that's it, they are completely insignificant. Next is Meghalaya. As far as Meghalaya is concerned, Meghalaya problem is completely different. Meghalaya's major issue, there are three major tribals, Khasi, Jaintia and Garo. Okay, most of the dispute is infighting. Yeah, because of infighting, they would want a sovereign state. Or because of infighting, they would want a separate state for Khasi. They would want a separate state for Garo. That is the major issue going on. So Northeast, you need to, how do you read Northeast, I will tell you. You need to sit, put a table and then mug it up. You don't think Northeast, there won't be question. There are, I know one candidate who is now an IPS, when he entered interview, they asked, what is the issue going on Naxalism? Then he was answering. Then they asked, every one state of Northeast, how many states are there in Northeast? He says, then he says, what is the problem going in Assam? What are the forces happening, whether there is going to be a ceasefire, whether there is ceasefire or not, who is the interlocutor. Then next state, what is the problem going on, what are the issues, what are the insurgent groups functioning there and what is the solution. Only factual part of it, then they asked how it is going to be tackled. So don't think Northeast there won't be a question. There can be a single point of question or there can be a consolidated question. So what you will do is, after knowing this, it may look very similar when I say, and it is also not very much interesting to understand, it is because overlapping. But because of that, don't leave it. You need to spend some time at home, you need to have a paper, then write Assam. This so and so, that's it. Whatever you need to memorize, have it. Then every state, do that and go. So as far as Meghalaya is concerned, this is the issue. Meghalaya, there are three tribes, Khasi, Jaintia and Garo. The food is full of infighting. These are the groups and every group have their own problem and assume GNLA. They wanted to create a separate Garo land, sovereign. Then HNLC, they wanted to liberate Meghalaya from Garos. Liberate Meghalaya from Garos. Then the third is LAEF. It is a Garo militant outfit from 2005 with an objective to free the state from domination of Khasis and Jaintias. Yeah, so this is, I have nothing to say on it. This is what we need to recognize. So they don't fight only with India, they even infight. Okay, so they want their cultural identity to be maintained. People's Liberation Front of Meghalaya. It is a new terrorist outfit that operates from Garo Hills and now called Aiching National Council. The objective of it is to separate state for Garos. Again. So everybody is very active there. That is the problem. And these are other organizations which you don't need to understand very much. Okay. And this is Mizoram. As far as Mizoram is concerned, Mizoram, the original trouble started after there was an acute food shortage. There was an acute food shortage in Mizoram for which the central government does not respond properly in 1960s. When the central government does not respond properly in 1960s, Mizo National Famine Front was started. And that particular famine has killed more than 20,000 people of their population. And it has created a very lasting devastation. Once the famine has naturally, subsequently rains will come, subsequently agricultural practices will happen, and subsequently things will get normal. Once that comes, those who got disaffected because of the state's response have started an organization that they named as Mizo National Front. And they started claiming separate sovereign separation from India, and Indira Gandhi had handled it very badly where she has used helicopters and bombing of Mizoram, and which has created a complete disaffection of this, and which has resulted in increase in number of insurgencies. So again Mizoram, as far as they are concerned, they just wanted to take out Mizoram and establish a socialistic state. And there is also infighting. So this is the common understanding about Mizoram. But of late Mizoram is peaceful. So now post 2000 majority of the issues have been settled. And recently again now the fear is that because of mishandling in Jammu Kashmir and other areas we are seeing now, that we will see last, why this is recurring again. Next is Tripura. And as far as Tripura is concerned, Tripura's annexation is very bad. When the Tripura ruler died, his son was 13 years old. His wife was appointed as the ruler by the council there. And his wife would have been pressurized to join with India, and she will abolish the council, and then she will join Indian state. Then Tripura, all Tripura Tiger Force, they wanted to go back to their own Tripura land, and they wanted to establish a sovereign state. And again the fighting is between Tripura's various organizations, the same issues, and these are the various Tripura infighting organizations. 23 are there. I'm just giving it to you, you don't need to understand it. This is Manipur. Manipur is also very pathetic in accusation. When Manipur's king was, Manipur king would be called to Shillong for a discussion on annexation. And he would have come based on the invite of the governor. The governor of Manipur, the then governor of Manipur, was like his father. Because originally the then Manipur's king's name is Bodh Chandra Singh. His father has chased him out of the kingdom or the state. Then he would have went to Varanasi, and Varanasi would have stayed in a place where the present, at that time, governor, who will also subsequently become a governor, would have given him an accommodation. This particular person will invite him to Shillong. And then after inviting him to Shillong, in the name of giving VIP security, Jat regiment would be fully encircled, would have fully encircled this palace, and he would have been not allowed to go out. then they would have pressurized him to sign the instrument of accession. Because till 1949, there won't be any signing of agreement with Manipur. Then the particular king would be requesting them to give him time to go back to his own place and discuss with people and come back and sign. For that, he would not be allowed. The simple reason they would said is, now already is October 1949. In November 26, we need to adopt our constitution, and January 1950 we need to become republic. First you sign, then we will do that. And annexation of India, if you see, it would be sometimes very terrible, like Tripura. Only we see 2 or 3 things in polity. What happens is Kerala, Maharaja of Travancore started discussion with foreign countries. Then Hyderabad would have wanted to go. Pajola would have wanted to go. Similarly, Indur, in the middle of India, they don't want to join. Then Jammu Kashmir don't want to join. Majority of Northeast does not want to join. All these have been forcefully united. And the way that then Junagadh does not want to join. These are the ways they made India. That is why India is strong center and weak state, because India needs to be held together. That is the reason. So as far as Manipur is concerned, this is how they have annexed Manipur. And this has created a very strong resentment among people. So Manipur's insurgency is next to Nagaland. So the way they annexed Manipur was completely unacceptable with the people, because he would not be allowed to consult people. Then he would have been betrayed by his own master, that he was helped by a person to become a king. So because he helped him, he treated him as a father. But the same person would be used as a bite for bringing him to Shillong. And at Shillong he would have been arrested practically, and he would have been made to sign the agreement between India and Manipuri. That is where this Kalingpak Communist Party, who just want to completely separate Manipur from India and have a separate thing. All these organizations are the demand of sovereign state. And the difficulty with Manipur is that they just want to establish links with other organizations. So this creates Manipur-Nagaland link, Manipur-Nagaland and Ulfa. This link is more dangerous. The individual state is different. When these organizations gets linked together is different. Where the trouble starts is when supported by ISI, when supported by Bangladeshi government, when supported by Myanmar government. Myanmar government has sometimes extend supports to government of India, sometimes for exploiting resource reasons, extend support to these insurgents. All these things are because of this extent of distance between the mainland and northeast, India was unable to establish control. This is where India starts to have an armed control over there. We have enforced an act called as Armed Forces Special Power Act, and that is the bone of contention at Manipur. As far as Manipur is concerned, the bone of contention is Armed Forces Special Power Act. As far as Armed Forces Special Power Act is concerned, there have been lot of demands from civil society to remove it. But the army is not accepting. The army is completely against it. The army does not want to lift it, because they say if you are going to remove it, then don't hold us responsible. Then Supreme Court appoints a commission, and that particular commission submits a report which says we need to remove it. But despite that, we are not ready to remove it. And the third part is, second ARC also said we need to remove it, we are not ready to remove it. So Armed Forces Special Power Act is one another area which we need to study when we study Northeast. Armed Forces Special Power Act is very draconian, for the reason that Section 3 empowers governor to enforce it. For enforcing that, the governor need not request or heed to the request of state government. The governor need not listen to state government. Governor can himself pronounce it. So this is where federal principles are affected, because central government enforces it under Article 355. 355 states is the duty of the central government to protect states from internal disturbance and external aggression. So Armed Forces Special Power Act, the powers conferred upon the officer is very high. It gives a legal immunity even if an officer kills an individual. In the name of hideouts, they have the right, the Armed Forces Special Power Act Section 6 gives the power to destroy the hideouts. In the name of hideouts, they destroy the houses. They enter, if they could not get an information, they destroy the houses. In the name of search, they completely disturb the whole village. And the human rights violations are so many that you would be knowing Iram Sharmila, where she have been in hunger strike for more than 16 years. So these things are the hot issues of Manipur. As far as Manipur insurgency is concerned, it's active, one thing. And the other part is concerned, insurgency in Manipur is more triggered, or disaffection in Manipur is more triggered because of Armed Forces Special Power Act. Originally it was brought to be enforced in Manipur and Assam. Subsequently it was extended to many states now. That is in bone of contention now. Now Supreme Court has interfered and regulated it in a larger extent. So Armed Forces Special Power Act is no doubt is draconian because it gives a legal immunity on the officer who wants to curtail the operations. The only, all the commissions which has inquired into it have said it is draconian, we need to remove. And Jagjeevan Reddy Commission also have said, you remove this and add certain draconian provisions in Unlawful Assemblies Act. Don't have a separate act for this. And that is also not agreeable by the government. And even government reports shows that there are a lot of human rights violation in Jammu Kashmir using Armed Forces Special Power Act. And Supreme Court have said the inquiries have to be conducted within 30 days and FIRs has to be filed within 60 days and the trial has to finish within 90 days. All these conditions Supreme Court has enforced. And central government has now reduced it line by line or reduced it in it is in the reduction mode in Assam. Since wherever there is less of violence, they are slowly withdrawing Armed Forces Special Power Act. This is the stage. But Armed Forces Special Power Act, the only opposition for lifting Armed Forces Special Power Act is the army. Whoever is army general, the army general makes an open statement that if you are going to lift Armed Forces Special Power Act, then army should not be held responsible for any of the mishappenings in those areas. That is the only threat army gives. Once army gives a threat, it is very difficult for the civilian government to lift it without the concurrence of army. And even Supreme Court are unable to do it because the army generals are ready to file affidavits in Supreme Court saying that it is required. So Supreme Court is now trying to strike a balance between Armed Forces Special Power Act and human rights. So this is what we need to understand about Manipur. These are the other terrorist organizations in Manipur. But this is what Northeast is. Northeast, they have the difficulty of, because of ethno-nationalism. And everywhere they have their own difficulties and every difficulties are unique from the other. So what you need to do is state-wise write, state-wise remember and leave it. And overall consolidation we will do. That is the important part of Northeast. Because they may ask only Assam problem, they may ask only Manipur problem, they may ask only Nagaland problem. We cannot even ignore. So, inner line permit, this is another issue of Manipur. Inner line permit is already there for Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland and Mizoram. What is inner line permit is beyond this, okay, no other person than the already existent citizens alone can buy property, can do trade. Inner line permit is there in Leh, inner line permit is there in Arunachal Pradesh, inner line permit is there in Nagaland, Mizoram. Manipur wants that. Manipur it was lifted. Once it is lifted, now Manipur wants that to be brought back, stating that our resources are being exploited, so many immigrants have come, so many outside population has come and settled, and this is the demand of Manipuri population. So this is also not being considered by central government. So Manipur demands for inner line permit, and reasons for inner line permit is this. So inner line permit, prior to 1951 there was an inner line permit that was lifted. Now inner line permit is not there. They wanted to establish inner line permit which government of India is not answering. So this is The last issue, last state is Nagaland. This is not the map of Nagaland. This is the map of the demands of Nagaland. Okay, it goes not only within India, beyond India. How can India solve this? That is the problem of Nagaland. This is Greater Nagalim. They wanted Greater Nagalim where they want territories of Assam, territories of Manipur, territories of Arunachal Pradesh and territories of Myanmar. This creates a trouble between Manipur and Nagaland. So that is also one reason their insurgents were very irritant about India. When India calls NSCN for negotiation, these Manipuri insurgents get irritated. They ask our land, you want them for a negotiation. That means are you going to give our land? This is their question. Okay, they say, wait, let us discuss. Tell what you are going to discuss. This is the problem. The same happens with Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, everywhere. If NSCN is called for, if the Nagaland negotiation, what happens? Government of India has made a framework agreement with Nagaland 2015 with NSCN IM. This framework was now become a bone of contention because the government of India does not disclose what is the framework. Now that has become irritant with Manipur. Why do you go for a secret framework with Nagaland? That means we understand that it is going to be against Manipur. So this is another problem which the Indian government faces. If we say openly, no, your integrity, your territorial integrity will be protected, then he will not come for the table. If he is called for the table, their demand is, these are the original occupied places of Naga tribes. That is their demand. Naga tribes settles in this area in 13th century prior to Agoms. Prior to Agoms they settled. So that is their demand. So these are the areas. Who? Kaplang. Kaplang will never be part of it. That is what I am saying. NSC and IM. The 2015 agreement was not with Kaplang. Kaplang was never on agreement. Now Kaplang is no more.
2001, Isaac Muiwa signed the agreement. They walked out. In 15, it was.
You are talking about ceasefire. In 2001, it is a ceasefire. In 1997, it was a ceasefire between Isaac Muiwa, and 2001 was a ceasefire between Kaplang. And I don't think we don't mug up so toughly. I don't think in Northeast it requires so much. That is why I am also very free on discussion, because it is going to be very similar. If we go to Northeast, we cannot identify one between the other till we become very common there. The same way the story also. We will get confused between what happens in Manipur and what happens in Meghalaya. Now after the class, if I ask you, tell me what happened in Manipur, you cannot answer. Because it will be so overlapping. That is why I said, have a separate papers for it. So that is you speak about ceasefire. I am speaking about 2015. It is framework agreement between Government of India and NSCN. Now that is the current affairs issue where the other parties does not want to allow, because they say NSCN IM is not the only. And as far as Nagaland is concerned, this is the most dreadful terrorist organization as far as Northeast is concerned first. Second thing is, this is the mother of all revolutions. Okay, the original problem starts in 1918 when British Army for the First World War recruits few Naga people for Naga people as army people. After World War I, they were sent back to Nagaland. Once they have come to Nagaland in 1925, they start a club called as Naga Club. And this particular Naga Club represents before the British government, we have helped you so much. We have been part of your World War. Now you have to understand that we are not part of your British India. We are separate. I recognize us differently. Now the British feared if we recognize them separately, then they will not get assimilated into the whole of British India. So they rejected it. Then slowly discontent rises. In 1947, independence happens without consulting them. At least Manipur, Tripura and other places like Sikkim, here they were rulers. These rulers were the point of contact for India, either to annex or not to annex. Whereas Nagaland was considered part of Assam. the frontier province, where they never gave respect to the aspirations of Nagaland. Then what happens is, then negotiations were happening, and post negotiations, few people come for negotiation. And when few people come for negotiation, the government of India, Nehru gives statehood to Nagaland. Okay, right, you don't need to be part of the larger northeastern territory. Rather, you be a separate statehood. Then that again becomes a bigger issue for other ethnic tribes there. Why would you give Nagaland a separate statehood? Then give me separate statehood, give me separate sovereignty. That is how Nagaland becomes the mother of all troubles. Subsequently, what happens is, only few tribesmen were left. In 1957, there was another agreement. After that, 1970s, there was an agreement between Government of India and Nagaland, where they understand that they will give up arms. In the meantime, what happens, the person called as Piso, he was against it, and he goes to China for weapons training to extend the scheme here. Once he was in China, the other moderate groups comes for an agreement with the government. Then all Naga issues got settled. But when he comes back, he understands the other peoples have betrayed him and gone for a settlement. And those 10 people took arms. That time government was very, very reluctant about this 10. The government of India stand is, it is only 10. We don't need to take much of the action against them. Let us leave it, it will get disintegrated. But subsequently, this 10 has become the greatest threat for India, and now Naga peace process have been initiated. And now subsequently, this PISO group started ISN, not NSCN. This NSCN subsequently gets divided into two. NSCN India, NSCN Myanmar. Okay, NSCN India is headed by Isaac Muiwa. NSCN Myanmar was headed by Kaplang. So this Isaac Muiwa group establishes a government in exile. Then this Kaplang group, since they are from the Myanmar part, they are not always for the negotiation with India. And they are also supported by Myanmar's government, because it was helping Myanmar's government to have exploited the natural resources there. So this is the agreement going on, and Kaplang dies 1.5 years back. Now it has become another further split has happened. Now Kaplang has been further divided into Koyang and Tongyang, or some name is there. Okay. And he is the nephew of Koyang, and who confines himself to Myanmar, and this Koyang group confines themselves to India. Now both of them are infighting. Within the same group, there is a breakup group, and they are infighting. And all these are not relevant to the exam. But what happens from India's standpoint is, in 2015, India thinks this is the biggest trouble. So NSC and IN, Isaac Muiwa was called, and then they go for an agreed framework. And this agreed framework was not made open because of the reasons I told you, because it involves Greater Nagaland, other regions. So this is not made secret. Trouble brews in two places. One is in Nagaland itself, other is in Manipur. Manipur started saying, and Assam, Ulfa again started, students movement again started. They said, if you are going to enter into an agreement with NSC and IM secretly, then it amounts to betrayal of us. We are not ready. But Government of India is not ready to disclose. Then they appoint one person called as Ravi as interlocutor, and he has now gone. R.N. Ravi as interlocutor, and R.N. Ravi is now negotiating 6 group which considered to be representing the whole Naga population, and other civil societies have also been called in, and negotiations are going on. And originally they thought they will come for a negotiation before this Christmas. That negotiation could not happen, but ceasefire is with Kaplang, ceasefire is with NSC and IM. Okay, everybody is in ceasefire, and now the issue is that NSC and IM is not the sole representative of Nagaland. So that is what Nagaland insurgency is concerned. So the peace process, once this comes, you can see with the names and everything, it will be there. Isaac Muiwa, Kaplang. So the problem is Government of India's response to that. What is the Government of India's response? A composite strategy followed by government includes holding talks with the group. Ceasefire agreements have been made with most of the insurgent groups, and SOPs in place in most of the entire region. Generally what we do is, we go for ceasefire agreement. We go for composite dialogue. Actually, we think that is the best way of dealing, and that is the problem. On seeing, we don't know the internal dynamics of it. We understand one bus stand is being blown by one organization. Immediately that organization sends an signal of ceasefire. Immediately government of India would be ready for a ceasefire. Then only we'll understand that particular bombing was done by a particular organization, and that particular organization have only 200 people as the strength as tribals. Then on looking at it, 2,000 people strength tribe will be there. They will again bomb on another bus station. Then only on negotiation table they will say, when you can call 200 people for negotiation, why will not call a tribe of 2,000 strength? Okay, this is how it goes. So the problem with India is that we are unable to properly negotiate. We negotiate on bits and pieces, and as I already said, it is an ethno-nationalism conflict which is completely divided between various factions and various groups and various tribes. We are unable to unite it. That particular art of negotiation India is missing. The government has always pushed for talks and negotiation with various groups. The government is striving to bring in fruits of development to the northeast region. That is what now we have changed from. Another important aspect what we have to say is, look east policy has been modified as act east. So that is another area which you have to see. I will be circulating material on Armed Forces Special Power Act, 5th and 6th schedule, look east and act east, all these things they will give you tomorrow apart from this slide. And these are the basic principal decisions which government have taken now. Special schemes to northeast, special packages for infrastructure, third day, again reputation of it. Proportional and effective use of force, handling of issues with tool of negotiation and dialogue, not with arms, providing effective political autonomy, decentralization of power and protection of the rights of the tribes, improvement of connectivity through roadways and rails in the region, look east policy, now it has been changed into act east. Okay, generate investments by organizing business summits, creating awareness by conducting exhibitions. Counter-insurgencies, you can easily read, same as previous. Okay, it will be one again an multi-pronged approach, effective communication, infrastructure, talks with insurgents, coordination between center and state, the same as in Naxal areas or in, I will change it or I will read it line by line. The same, whatever counter-insurgency measures we take everywhere, it is also taken here. Besubara Committee. Okay, this is what we need to take up for exam. Besubara Committee's recommendation is very important. There are 5 recommendations of Besubara Committee on tackling discrimination. This is predominantly appointed after the violence against northeastern students at Delhi. And subsequently this is appointed and they have given an overall policy for integration of northeast into India. There must be new law against discrimination. Either a new law should be created as directed by High Court of Delhi or a penal code should be amended. Exclusively a chapter in Indian Penal Code has to be brought in stating that violence against northeast should be treated as a racial. We have for untouchability. Like that we don't have for racial discrimination. Those days you would be remembering 4 years back, 5 years back, northeastern people would have been hurt severely. Similarly then the offences should be made cognizable, all these offences should be made cognizable and FIR should be filed within 60 days and the whole inquiry should have been finished within 90 days. That we call it as summary trial. Summary trial is taking up the trial at a faster phase and finishing up in a faster phase. And third is fast track courts and special police squads. That you must be understanding. Whenever a case comes, that has to be taken fast and finished fast. Specially designed public prosecutors. Like there are public prosecutors in court who will only handle child offences, who will handle only offences against women, who will handle only offences relating to company. Like that there must be a special public prosecutor for offences against northeastern people. Then the committee feels the creation of special squad supervised by Northeast Special Police Unit would go a long way in ensuring speedy justice in criminal cases. So there must be a new force called as Northeast Special Police Unit and they must be sensitized about the northeastern students and northeastern people's issues. Then intervention education. This is with regard to protection of northeast students outside India. What happens is, if they are being treated improperly or treated as racially, what happens is they lose hope on India. And once they go there, okay, or once they are put into difficulties, the reaction would be there in Northeast. And when we speak about integrating Northeast, we must also give them an equitable treatment. That was the purpose behind the first part of session. And second is intervention education. So they wanted to give an exposure to education. The majority of the migrations happens because of lack of infrastructure and lack of teachers or lack of institutions there. That needs to be rectified, that they say needs to be brought in. The committee recommends that when the next NCRE takes place, the teachers must be sensitized to teach according to the needs of Northeastern students. Subsequently, larger migration of students for higher education in Delhi, it is because no Institute of Excellence is there. So establishment of Institute of Excellence. Then a detailed socio-economic study of the nature of student migration from Northeast would be worthwhile, as it will provide valuable insights for planning of higher education in the region. Then social media outreach and legal awareness campaigns. Then these are all full of social medias. Then bonding power of sport. Bonding power of sport is that sport events, national and international events should be conducted in Northeast so that people from mainland India will go there. From there they will come here. Similarly, the ministry should therefore review the status of present facilities, make assessment if suitable, and based on it, games has to be established in Northeast. The other sessions. Then development of Northeastern region is another aspect. As usual, these are all the regular things which you will read. Then unemployment higher in urban areas. Unemployment in Northeast has to be addressed. Employment generation has to be triggered. Because employment is not there, other means of livelihood youngsters are going for. So unemployment needs to be addressed. Poverty level in Northeast is very high. So National Institute of Rural Development says poverty line has to be brought below the national average. So that is another problem which Northeast is facing. Then transport sector, as you know, since the rail network is very poor, road network is very poor, all these things we need to improve. Power production, the scope of power production in Northeast is very high, but still we have not exploited it. If we try to exploit it, the sources of income, the development of the region will be very high. Then literacy rate is very high in Northeast, that needs to be capitalized. Okay, that needs to be capitalized by means of providing things, infant mortality and ease of doing business. Infant mortality, as far as infant mortality is concerned, it is as high as in African nations. So government intervention is required in Northeast to reduce infant mortality. Similarly, in Manipur, we call Manipur as a failed state because of the insurgency is there, none of the establishments could survive there. Government has to take a step as we do in Naxal affected areas, where we have to occupy a space, establish the industry, establish the establishments and protect the establishments and thereby serve the people. Then ease of doing business needs to be raised. So that TCS has established in Assam. Similarly, other industries, tax haven has to be created. Okay, then transportation has to be increased. Then these things would promote corporate social responsibilities, can be exploited for better establishment of it there. And these things are the suggestions which they give for development of Northeastern regions. Apart from regular developmental schemes which we read. So as far as Northeast is concerned, these are the areas. So consolidating back, Northeast, the questions can be like this. One is each individual state, what is the problem happening? Second part is, they can ask for the overall discontent of Northeast, ethno-nationalism. What is ethno-nationalism? How can you give a solution? How can we integrate Northeast? This can be a question. Or else they can ask a question on Armed Forces Special Power Act. They can ask a question on NRC. They can ask question on recent 5th schedule and 6th schedule issues. They can ask questions on Greater Nagaland or otherwise individual states issues. So this is what Northeast is. So Northeast is not a very big or complex things to study. As well as Northeast, you would have thought Northeast as a complex issue because you are not exposed to it. Northeast difficulty is memorizing is difficulty, remembering is difficult. Okay. My friend also got confused between 15 agreement and 11 agreement, and that happens to me. If you see, for others I did not come like this. See how I have come for this, Manipur. Before coming, I would write Arunachal Pradesh because it will naturally confuse. So you do like this, take one A4 sheet, what is the facts for a particular state, write it, keep it in a file. That is the only way you can understand Northeast. As well as overall Northeast is concerned, Armed Forces Special Power Act, that and all is conceptual understanding, that would be a trouble. Northeast is more of facts. Conceptually speaking, Northeast is very simple. Northeast is ethno-nationalism. As far as ethno-nationalism is concerned, it has to be understood from their perspective and not from your perspective. When it comes to this, the tribals in Central East tribal, you have understood Central East feeling, you don't, what is India's tribal policy? India's tribal policy is non-intervention. The tribal policy of India is that if the tribals want to integrate, we will integrate. That is the reason why sentinels were not disturbed. The island was completely allowed, but the Indian government blow hot and cold. In Nicobar, in Northeast, they interfere into their affair. They say what is right and what is wrong, or they say this is right. If you take the example of post-tsunami Nicobar rehabilitation, they have completely destabilized the fabric of tribes of Nicobar. What Nicobaris used to stay on the sea. There is a concept called as Nicobari hut. What they will do is, the hut will have a raised standing on the sea. Whenever there is a low tide, the water will recede. People come down from the home and walk off. Whenever there is high tide, they have to walk on the river, walk on the water and come to the home. This is how their huts will be. And they have a system called as Tuge system, where there will be a common kitchen. There will not be any individual kitchen. Every woman in the morning will go to the common kitchen to help the women there. And every man going for office, going out, will go there and eat and go. This is how the system was. Post-tsunami, what they did is, they have completely re-established things away from the sea, and if they said, we will bring you quarters, we will get you quarters. In every quarters, they have built a kitchen and gave it. And there is no common kitchen given. Automatically, the whole Tuge system get disturbed. This is that the government does not have an idea of what it is doing. Government will directly enforce Indira Awas Yojana. Okay, like any they need to understand what is the tribal mindset. They need to understand it is their right of cultural protection. Okay, cultural protection is a basic fundamental right. What need to be given, what should not be given. And all you understand rises from the non-proper integration of the nation. That is the problem. Manipur was integrated brutally, Tripura was integrated brutally, Nagaland was ignored of their demands. If they would have not ignored that PISO group of only 10 in number, now we do not have become such a, the whole Northeast now in trouble. So this is where we need to understand about Northeast. As the Northeast is concerned, this is what you will understand about Northeast. So you will only read this, and most probably questions will come from this area alone, Northeast. So the area of question is only this, Northeast. Any doubts you can ask?
So you said Manipur is a failed state, can you explain it?
The failed state in the sense we term it as a failed state because most of the development parameters are very poor. Either it is infant mortality, or it is literacy, or it is development of cities.
But same is the case with other states as well, like
We call Kerala as a God's own country. Like that, it is a jargon we use against Manipur. Yesterday your question was that. Yesterday you said why as Northeast you would have not handled Jammu Kashmir. Same problem. No. 1 minute, I'll finish this.
So in the whole story, you said that Northeast has it has not been addressed properly, but it has been handled in a good way compared to Kashmir. In the whole story.
That is what you understand, that is how I will also understand. My understanding is that all three places could have handled better after understanding this. It is a governance deficit, but my solace is that at least in 2000 government has understood that these are the real serious problems which has to be addressed. So, that is the difficulty, that is why India is poor, because Indians are poor. Why Indians are poor? Because India is poor. That is a vicious cycle.
You said that in the northeast, the government of India used Indian army. But in case of Naxalism, they didn't.
Because of they have burnt their hands already. And other thing is that is insurgency which is predominantly triggered with cross-border support. Moreover, it is all a defense taken by the policy makers of that time. Any other doubt?
Sir, do any of the missionaries have in this northeast insurgency, like the people who wants to mass?
There is only thing is the demands of few tribes are that their script should be in a Roman script because it has an affinity to Christianity. Other than that, there is no religious involvement in terrorism.
Like they are supporting these people from the behind because it's
No, so far I would understand any reports like that.
When the government started using Indian army in northeast,
Right from the start. Armed Forces Special Power Act, holding Northeast itself is using Jat regiment, I was telling you, no. 1960s,
started 1960s itself, but why?
original Naxalism was seen as a law and order problem. Whereas Northeast was seen as an separatist subnationalism, that is where the original mistake starts. We did not recognize as an ethno-nationalism. Tomorrow's class will be handling that part of it, ethical part of terrorism. Is terrorism ethical or not? State-sponsored terrorism, all these things we'll see tomorrow. Anything else? Doubt? ILP, inner line permit. You want to explain what is inner line? Inner line permit is...
Not extended to all
If strictly speaking, it is a policy decision of the government. It is there for few states. The defense they give is that beyond this, it is tribal areas where you will not have right of owning property or right of doing this, right of exploiting. Then it has to be decision taken by the government. If they give it to Manipur, it is a policy decision.
Protesting about it, na? Recently Manipur was protesting about it, that they want.
If you ask my personal opinion, Manipur has to be given because it was there already prior to 1951. Subsequent 1951 only it has been dropped. So, but it has to be decided by the policy makers. It is a policy decision. No, not necessarily Schedule 6 states. It is about governmental policy. Inner line, yeah, but generally they will give, Leh has been given and northeast few states have been given and this is what government has now given. In Andaman there is no inner line permit, but in Nicobar it is there.
Sir, as you said that this is, according to your perception, it should be given to Manipur also. But it will not hinder the development projects there by the private party because the ILP is given to all the states.
ILP does not bar you from development. It bars alienation of the property.
How can the private party can invest money there? They are not allowed to buy lands or buy property.
You go to Leh, you will have 5-star hotels at Leh.
So they are from the private, from their indigenous people, not from the.
How do indigenous people get money? Even that can be seen as a way that there will be a better partnership. Exploitation will not only be the corporates.
As in the Kashmir also we talk about the 35A when outsiders are not allowed to buy the land there. The supporters of who wants to eradicate this 35A, they want that it should be given out so that they can buy land there. Because if we have a private.
As I said already, 35A, 370 are more emotive. It is better, we will not touch it. It is like ethno-nationalism. You are given a privilege.
You talk about the lay, na? That's why I talk about that. If we remove these things, the private investment can be there.
I will tell you, private investment, it is all about governmental policy. If assume, how do we regulate FDI? How do you regulate foreign investment? You don't allow them everywhere 100%. You allow them at 20%, you allow them at 49%, you allow at different ratios. You have, if the government is so proactive, government will understand how to forge private into interline permit. Where the government will say, this is what the percentage you can have, this is what the holding area you must have, this is the year you must, this much of years you must be holding here, this much of years you have to invest this much of it here. If the government it is always issue of policy making. It is if you think inline permit comes, don't think no private investment will come. Again, it is government policy to attract private investment. Government can attract private investment despite inline permit. Or let government establish financial institutions where good business proposals would be funded by the financial organizations for the welfare of indigenous people.
There are lots of the insurgent groups. Are they all armed with guns, or they are some of them extortion groups?
And one thing, here every group survives because of extortion. Majority of the group survives because of extortion. Northeast.
Are they all the armed?
How do then they will survive? NSC and IM survives because of drug trafficking. Okay, that you would be knowing that golden triangle. Okay, that is their major source of income.
There is long list. There may be more than 500.
They do it. That is a very, you don't have employment opportunities there. A trader cannot take a natural resource from northeast to mainland India without paying them. There will be checkpost. If practically people say in interior Nagaland, there will be a checkpost where there will be collection of tolls by these ultras. All these groups has to survive for buying arms, ammunitions, by maintaining the cadre.
So from where they buy arms and ammunition?
That is again the same opium trade. That is money laundering. All these we'll see in money laundering. Okay, that is where the money comes from. That is where money comes from opium trade. Money comes from drug trafficking. Money comes from illegal trafficking. And this money is invested in arms. Okay, again that trade is also illegal. That is why we call it as a parallel economy. That runs with our economy, parallel to it. And all this money they will take it from, that is what there is a scheme called as, there is a concept called as Gresham's law of money. Gresham's law of money is that bad money drives good money out. Assume if I am going to have an income from my profession in proper white money, and then suddenly I cut off as white and off as black. This black I cannot deposit in my bank. What I will do is, I will put, similarly I will not keep it at home. I will invest in some business which does not require white money. Then on investing, a profit will come. That profit also I cannot account. Then slowly what happen, if assume I am going to have an hotel or an roadside shop where I am not going to give bill, then that money comes. I take out of from your pocket, which is a white money, then I will convert it into black money because I don't give bill. But you would have got it as a salary. Your white money comes into my pocket and becomes a black money because I don't give bill. Then it swells. Then I put it in somewhere. Then it swells. As it swells, this black money will also swell because I cannot show it out. I have to, wherever money I require, I have to take it from the existing economy. That is what they call it as, slowly it becomes a parallel economy. All these would be happening in white, all these would be happening in black. There will be two economy existent. Slowly this black money would be swelling, white money will be reducing. That is what they call it as Gresham's law of money. And this is where money laundering helps terrorist activities and other activities.
So recently government released the data on the number of districts affected by LWE. Are they categorized on the mine affected district or the district?
They have multiple criterias, the presence of them, the control system established there,
affected by LW.
Yes.
Either they are mild or extreme affected.
There are categories. Nearly 40 districts are thoroughly affected. Previously it was 130. Now they have reduced it to nearly 40.
Their number of districts affected is 190 currently.
Worst affected is 40.
Worst affected is 40.
40. Yeah. So, I think today we have to finish class earlier. Because
Stand on citizenship amendment bill.
that is what I am saying. Citizenship Amendment Bill, we need to accommodate this interest. The problems are, there are two aspects in citizenship. When they ask, okay, citizenship, as far as citizenship is concerned, there are two aspects. Citizenship should not be for the sake of cultural privilege. First thing, citizenship should be for the sake of full citizenship, because we don't distinguish between citizenship and full citizenship. And similarly, there is a formal citizenship and a proper citizenship. So, whenever you plan to give citizenship, it should be fulfilling the requirements and fulfilling the needs of the persons who get citizenship. When that is the case, you must also take the other party around. Illegal migrants, we call it as undocumented citizens. Undocumented citizens, we cannot easily give citizenship because India is already fully populated. India is already suffocating with population. There must be an consideration, and it should not be for the sake of vote bank politics. So that is, no doubt, that is an logical. Supreme Court also asked the same question. Why do you unnecessarily give illegal migrant citizenship? That is why this register was being revisited. That is being given because of this vote bank politics.
We haven't talked about critique to urban nationalism. Critique to urban nationalism.
Critique to urban nationalism.
We haven't talked about it.
That is Hindu, is there no? Hindu paper. Hindu paper, is there no? Urban nationalism, it is a fluidic concept. It exists, but we cannot find it. That is the problem. If it exists, it is wrong. If it does not exist, we don't mind.
I read an article, it was saying that it is completely myth, spreading by government, was saying urban nationalism to,
You would have read. I will tell you, please silence. I will tell you once again. Sorry, I have to be, one second. She asked a question that this is now the practical problem now aspirants undergo. She says that in Hindu or other papers where that is editorial or in column, it is opinion of the author who writes it. You need to first understand that. For civil service, after understanding various viewpoints, you must have your own viewpoint also. There is another example in Hindu I recently saw, I will tell you what is that. Recently that triple talaq amendment, triple talaq bill was introduced, where the male who practices would be given 3 years imprisonment. That was the bone of contention between Congress and BJP. The next day or the day after that, the article in Hindu was, the message what they carry is, it is a offence arising out of marriage. It is a civil offence. Okay, then it should not be criminalized. Okay, how many of you authorize the statement? Okay. Then what is bigamy? Bigamy. Then what is dowry? What is dowry? Dowry. Is it not a criminal offence? It is. It is a criminal offence. Does not it arise out of marriage?
Take the case of Hindu Marriage Act. In that case, it's not a criminal offence. It's a civil offence.
There is a special chapter in Indian Penal Code which says offences arising out of marriage.
But in case of Hindus, it's a civil offence. But in case of Hindu Marriage Act, the divorce would be treated as a civil offence. It's not a civil
No. My question is simple. When 3 years imprisonment is there for triple talaq, how do you term it as a civil offence? Because the justification given in the paper is that it arises out of marriage. Now I will ask you a question, what is the distinction between a criminal offence and a civil offence?
distinction.
A criminal offence and a civil offence. Okay, then how do you distinguish it? The core of distinction, you know what is that? A civil offence is a civil wrong done against an individual. Whereas a criminal offence is an offence which is done against the society. Assume in a Muslim marriage, one man marries a woman and divorces her after 15 years of marriage at one stroke. Similarly, this happens all over India. Every year 10,000 marriages happen. See, in 10 years, you will have 1 lakh widows in India. That is how it has to be seen as an offense against the society. Second thing is, we don't say, the act does not say you don't have a right to divorce your woman. You have right to divorce, but the way you do is so brutal that after 15 years or 16 years, in Muslim law, there is no law of maintenance. Okay, no law of maintenance. Post-marriage, maintaining the divorced partner is not there. Then assume it happens at 40. And consider the status of Indian Muslim women socio-economically. Okay, triple talaq is so brutal that you will send after 20 years of marital life, 15 years of marital life, assume 2 days of marital life. Okay, you will send her brutally out at instance of one party. There is already an existent law which says so and so. Other thing is, what are the other provisions you have to understand in the triple talaq bill is that is a compoundable offense. If the woman wants, if the woman and man goes for a compromise, then the offense is dissolved. That is the another provision. If assume there is no imprisonment for the male, do you think the male will come for a compromise? Oh yeah, you have to see it from larger. I'm not going for discussion on triple talaq. I'm going for how do now papers confuse you. Okay, the fact is the paper predominantly carried the message that it is a civil offense. We cannot. The similar way, there are several instances. I could only recollect this.
They are saying that when we compare other religions, it's clearly discrimination against Muslims. Like if you want to change the amendment, change for all religions. Why are you changing only for a particular religion?
That itself is different. You have to see it from religious perspective. In Hindu and Christianity, marriage is sacramental. In Islam, marriage is a contract. Okay, in Islam, marriage is a contract. But that is what I'm saying. Those who write, they automatically write. There must be a depth of knowledge to write. Now they say urban excellence is a myth. Then what then is intelligence agency? Understanding. Okay, there have been concrete proofs. Now there is one particular pattern of behavior is happening. Now they are systemizing it and patternizing it. Since they don't have an agreement with the term urban naxalism, they term it as a myth. And now since Hindu has a leniency towards communism, they propagate it. That is the basic idea behind it. I don't say they don't have right to propagate it. That is their opinion. They will do it. You will read it. You will also know the alternative view.
It seems so true, actually.
That is the capacity of the author.
Government programs which are suppressing these intellects and all, recent cases, we have seen many. So it seems so.
I will show you proofs where though Varagara Rao or few other people who have been termed as urban naxals have consistently opposed government on every front. And every government and every policy. They can. I don't say they don't oppose. They should not oppose. But I say on understanding it, I don't say Varagara Rao is the urban naxal. I say what should be the motive behind it. If it is only it is the personality, leave it. There can also be an alternative, there can also be an hidden agenda. If the hidden agenda seems to be true, then will not the government take an action against it? If the hidden agenda is understood by the government, then we cannot say, you cannot understand it this way. There is also other parties' right to understand how do you create disaffection against the state. Okay, what is your real involvement? You can be in critique, but critique with an ill intention. Any crime has two aspects of it. One is the mens rea, other is the actus rea. Mens rea is the ill intention. So criticizing on merit is different. Criticizing with an ill intention is different. And that ill intention has to be seen from corroborative perspective. What are other links? What is your plan? What is your circle? What is your future plan? And how your last criticism was linked with this? Who got motivated by you? All this has to be seen. So that is, so we'll finish class for today. Tomorrow we'll look into other aspects, internal security and other aspects. Thank you.
Is there any difference between insurgent groups and Naxals?